Hello good people of YouTube, and welcome to another one of my videos. Yesterday I had a great afternoon being interviewed with Stuart from Miniature Realms, where I spoke about my books, my love of the hobby, my own personal struggle with mental health and well-being, and how the hobby has been a lifeline for me over the years. I'm not sure when that video will be going out on the Miniature Realms channel, but it will be very soon. If you want to check that out, please do. I'll try and pop a link to the Miniature Realms channel in the comments or the description below my video. But yes, I had a wonderful afternoon with Stuart. He's a great guy. His channel is fantastic. His painting is exquisite, and he's got some fantastic hints and tips on his channel. So please do take the time, if you haven't already, to go and have a look at what's going on the Miniature Realms channel. So, having said that, today I am quite tired, but I did want to talk about these Agincourt Mounted Knights, 1415 to 1429, from Perry Miniatures. 28mm hard plastic, 12 mounted figures. So I did want to talk about those. And maybe these, like Cavalry, 1450 to 1500. Again, 28mm hard plastic, 12 figures from Perry Miniatures. And I kind of wanted to talk about these as well. Mounted Men-at-Arms, 1450 to 1500, 28mm hard plastic, 12 cavalry figures, again from Perry Miniatures. Or, to be more specific, I actually wanted to talk about these. The Perry Miniatures horse sprue that comes in all three of those boxes that I've just elegantly tossed to one side there. So I do want to talk about those, and perhaps maybe talk about those as well a little. And these are from Wargames Atlantic, and they are 28mm hard plastic horses from their general accoutrement range, and you get 18 multi-part horses in that box, and that's their horses box. Not to be confused with their light horses box, which also contains 18 multi-part hard plastic 28mm horse miniatures. Now, I use these quite a lot, and I don't know, well, there is a sprue left in there, and I've used one or two sprues from here, but I want to look at those soon as well. But if we come back to the Perry Miniatures horse frame or sprue, which contains 3 horses, I just wanted to do this video because really the temptation when you get a sprue like this is to pick a side, and then you find the side that's closest to it, and you snip those out the frame, and maybe you use the head that's attached to the horse's body, and you glue them together, and then you go back to the frame again, and you think, well, that one's close to that one, and I don't know, I can use that head or that head, and so you glue that together, and then you find the last 2 remaining pieces and you glue them together. And then you end up with maybe a horse that looks like that, and perhaps a horse that looks like that, and then maybe a horse that looks like that. There. And then you pick another sprue, and you start the whole process again. And before you know it, you've got 12 horses in 3 different poses, and it all starts looking very samey. So I just wanted to quickly run through something that I've been doing for quite a long time. I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there who've been doing it as well. But if you're new to the hobby, new to modelling, or you perhaps don't like modelling cavalry very much, here's a useful tip. And it's certainly something I do all the time. And basically, I will take a horse sprue like this, and I will pick a body like that. And then, yeah, I'll pick the opposite side that's closest to it. And then I'll pick a head. And I'll end up with a horse like that. And then I do the same thing again for the next sprue, the next horse, which I think, sorry, I was getting distracted there, which I think would have me building that one. And then I would do the same for the last horse on the frame. So I built my 3 horses, and then I pick up the frame again. And this time, instead of choosing that body that I chose the first time and that body, that half, to make the same body again, I would pick a different half, because all these halves are interchangeable. And then I would make sure that each left side was glued to a different right side when I went through my second sprue. So then I would possibly come up with something that maybe look like that. So that's the first horse with legs like that on one side. And then the second time I build it, same legs on that side, whoop, different legs on that side. So you get a different looking pose. And then the third sprue I come to, I would do the same again, picking a different right side, but using the same left side that I started off with. So basically, trying not to overcomplicate this, you've got a left side that's attached to the puddle base or the pudding base, and 3 different right sides, and then just whatever head fits. And then you repeat the process for the other left side on a puddle base, which is in a different pose. And then the third left side with the puddle base, and swap the right sides around. So basically, from 3 sprues with 3 horse bodies on them in 6 parts, swapping them around, you get 9 different models. Now, okay, a box contains enough horses to make 12, so you are going to have to repeat some of the bodies, but at least you're not getting 4 copies of the same 3 designs. You're mixing it up if that's the look you want to go for. So it's less regimented, looks great for a cavalry charge. You can do this for Napoleonics as well as ancients. You can do it for any cavalry you want where the horse parts are interchangeable. So if we assume that we purchase 3 boxes of Perry miniatures, and I'll come back to this in a minute, but if we get 3 boxes of the Agincourt mounted knights, because we want 36 cavalry figures, we're going to end up with 3 lots of 12 horses. But if we build them all the way these 9 have been built, we end up with not 3 lots of 12, but 4 lots of 9. So you'll have 4 horses like this, 4 horses like that, 4 like that, and so on. And the horse sprue also comes with 4 different heads. And this is the same horse sprue that you get in the War of the Roses boxes as well, the other 2 that I showed you, which were mounted men-at-arms, 1450 to 1500, and light cavalry. I say War of the Roses, but of course there were all sorts of wars going across Europe at this time, as you can see from some of the box art on the back. So anyone interested in that sort of 100 Years' War to late medieval era will probably end up with this sprue if they're buying Perry Cavalry. So here we have 3 different horses, horse bodies, and 4 different horse heads, all beautifully sculpted by the Perrys, as you'd expect. And what that basically means is once you've created your 4 lots of 9 different poses, you could then allocate the different head types to those different horse bodies. So you're further adding some randomness or differentiation between horses. So where you've got horses that all share the same pose, because you built 3 of them or 4 of them, you can use all 3 or 4 head designs on that one body, and again create a horse that stands out as being slightly different. So then, theoretically, you can have 3 units of 12 cavalry, 6 units of 6 cavalry, and all the horses will look individual. Will look to be individual because of the way that you've built them. And this is something that Wargames Atlantic have picked up on, because they do actually explain it on the back of their box. So these are the light horses. So I won't read it out, but basically you've got 4 different heads, 3 tails, 4 reins. There's all sorts in the light horse, but also in these, which I think are probably slightly heavier horses, where they go on to explain that, each half is interchangeable. So you've got 9 unique poses, which is the same for the Perrys. I've just explained that. You can combine that with 4 different heads to achieve 36 unique figures. But with Wargames Atlantic, you also get separate tails. So you could be gluing the tails into different positions to give you even more variety. But that's the principle behind this, and also the reason for shooting this video. Now I'm just trying to get into the Wargames Atlantic horse box with my one free hand off camera, so that I can extract the sprue. There we go. Oh, I've got 2 sprues. How good is that? So that is the Wargames Atlantic, and again you can see 6 half horse bodies. There's some tails there. There's also some blankets, saddle blankets, and 4 different heads. So the same principle applies with the Wargames Atlantics. Now if I go to the light horse, I'll show you their sprue as well. Again, the one-handed juggler. And there we have, now these horses, these light horses are actually slightly smaller than the other horses, which is kind of what you want. Light cavalry would not have gone tearing into battle on a huge war horse. So providing all the horses in the same unit are roughly the same size, then it wouldn't matter if your heavy cavalry units were mounted on larger horses than your light cavalry units. If anything, it would probably reflect reality better, but same principle applies for this as well. So all the halves are interchangeable as they are on the Perry sprue. Here you can see the sockets and the lugs on the Wargames Atlantic. That kind of attachment feature will be familiar to anyone who's kind of glued together some of the old school plastic Bretonians from Games Workshop. And as you can see from the Perry horses, they've got smaller lugs, but again, the pins and lugs are situated in the same place on the body relative to all the component parts. So you can end up creating a lovely unit of individual horses like I have done there. So I will paint those later and incorporate them later. But if we take one horse, what I wanted to show you now was size comparison with the light horse from Wargames Atlantic. So there we have it. You can see they're roughly the same size. I'm trying to get a decent picture of that without getting my shadow in the way. They're roughly the same size. I'll try and get the camera down a bit to sort of more eye level. If anything, I would say the Wargames Atlantic light horse is just a little bit skinnier round the legs. But in terms of the body and the head size, it's pretty good. And then if you look at the top, I don't know if you can see, that's probably slightly skinnier, but it's marginal. So Wargames Atlantic light horse there compared to a Perry medieval horse. Another light horse there in a slightly different pose, again just to kind of illustrate the point. Very similar in size, perhaps with a head up it seems a little bigger, but actually they're pretty comparable. So that's the light horse. Now I don't actually have a Wargames Atlantic heavy horse that I've built and not used. I've been using lots of these, particularly in Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth. But you can see again, you know, very comparable even just from the parts on that sprue. So I have got one which I've built just to illustrate the point. Now this is on a Gondor mounted knight, standard bearer, this one actually, because I wanted my character models when they came on the kind of the ubiquitous Lord of the Rings plastic horse, which I think is a beautiful sculpt. I mean, it's a lovely horse. But my only criticism of that model is, if anything, that horse is a little bit small. So when you've got troopers, warriors on that horse, and you put a standard bearer or Faramir or anyone else on the same horse, they don't stand out. They don't look heroic enough. So that's why I opted for Wargames Atlantic horses. I mean, the light horses would have done as well, I guess, but the Wargames Atlantic horses, and I think I might have had to have done a little bit of filling with milliput and green stuff and maybe carved a little off the side of the horse just to get that metal rider on. But I'm pretty pleased with how that looks, and it just makes the standard bearers, it just elevates them by a millimetre maybe, and they just slightly more imposing on the gaming table. And in the future I will show you more of that. But if we can just compare that horse to the Perry horse, yeah, you can see even with a bit of lens distortion and an awkward camera angle, it's pretty good. So the other thing I just wanted to show as well was I did actually paint a medieval horse for my in a how-to inside my fantasy painting modeling fantasy figures book. So there was a step-by-step guide on how to paint this particular horse, which I believe is from Fireforge. I think it's their Teutonic Knights, and I did actually complete the knight as well. Quite fancy a game of full tilt with that one perhaps, but I just wanted to compare horse sizes. He sits on a pin, that rider, so he's not glued on, but he doesn't always come off easily. But that's the Perry horse. Again, probably not a brilliant way of showing it, but you know, size seems pretty good. But when you look from above, yeah, maybe the head looks a bit bigger and maybe the back end of the horse is a bit fatter. But what I will do is I will use some of these, which I think are pretty good for sort of certainly early 100 years wars. I think from what I've seen, they would be pretty good for that, and obviously the obvious sort of late Crusades and what have you, whereas this is late 100 years. So but yeah, there's a size comparison, and just for completeness, that's an old Bretonian plastic horse without the tail. Now I've got about 20 of these horses and no metal riders anymore. So I am looking to either use them in historical wargaming or use them in Warhammer the Old World and find some suitable Bretonnian riders for the back. But as I said, I need about 20 and I don't want to pay silly prices for metals. But that's the old sort of classic Bretonnian horse, as I said, minus the tail. And then if we can compare that again to a Perry horse, you can see how basically the proportions are very chunky. It's slightly bigger, and how it compares to that one. So, and there we are. And again, I've got some of these built upstairs, but I've also got some still on the sprue because I'm missing 2 pairs of wings for the Bretonnian Pegasus Knights. But again, I just wanted to show you a comparison in sort of proportions and body sizes that, you know, the Warhammer the Old World plastics, they really are, you know, heroic scale. Look at the difference there in sort of hoof size and stuff, and also head sizes. Let's there. So when it comes to historical miniatures, then some of the fantasy stuff probably isn't that compatible. But anyway, as I said, it was just for completeness. And then if we look at this Fireforge, yeah, so, you know, these Pegasus, and okay, maybe a Pegasus would be bigger, but they're pretty similar to the horse sizes in the Bretonnian cavalry anyway. So, but I just wanted to include those, as I said, for completeness, so that we're not just looking at historical miniatures, we're looking at some of the current and old Games Workshop. But that is the horse that I wanted to talk about. Now, as I explained just very quickly, you can basically come up, whether you choose to use Perry horses in your conversions, if you're doing any conversions, whether you choose to use Wargames Atlantic, anything like that, you can come up with sort of 9 different body designs by gluing the different halves together. You can increase the individuality of the horses then to 36 if you glue the 4 different heads together. And so having done all that, we then come to the sprues. So if we start with Agincourt, let's start with Agincourt, because on the Agincourt Knights box there, the sprue, and I'll come back to this in a minute, but the sprue contains, two new horse heads and some barding as well, some chainmail barding, and there's a bit there that's sort of plate or solid metal. So on top of the 36 that you can create with the heads and the bodies from the horse sprue, you could further increase the variation by using the Agincourt horse heads that come on the knights and the barding and the combination thereof. So that's great, wonderful, fantastic. And the same applies if you're doing War of the Roses. We've got some barding there, left and right side, some heavy bardings. You can bard up 2 horses there with that. We've got some lighter barding there. And you can bard up 2 horses with that. You've got some extra feathers that you can stick on the horse heads that get you further variety. And there are 3 armoured heads here for your horses as well. So now not only can you do your 36 individual different designs of Perry horses, but you can add another 3 heads to that. And I think you get 3 sprues in the box, so that's a further 9 heads. And so it goes on. So basically, there's lots of potential. So that's the War of the Roses, the mounted men-at-arms, 1450 to 1500. So that gives you lots of options to upgrade your kind of conventional horse sprue from the Perrys. Now, if we come back to the Agincourt Knights, and they're 2 different heads, and you get 3 sprues of the knight bodies in the box. So that's another 6 heads that you can add, and so on and so on. if you look at this sprue, you will notice that you get 3 of these sprues, so you only need 4 legs to make 12 riders to fit on the 12 horses that you'll have built, the other 3 being the sprue there that I haven't actually built. So you only need 4 legs, but they give you 6 legs. So now you can make 3 times 6, 18 riders. Well, you've got 18 legs, but only 12 horses. So you need 18 torsos to complete those. And then what's this, I hear you cry? Because here on the Agincourt mounted knights frame or sprue, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great, that covers the 4 legs you've got there, but then you've got another 2 there. And okay, some are heavily armored and some are more lightly armored, and some might be squires and some might be knights, but suddenly you can create 6 riders. But wait, what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, another 4 designs there. So you've got more variety. Oh, 5, 6, 12. So you get 12 torsos on a frame, you get 6 legs on a frame, and you get 3 horses on a frame. 4 frames, 12 horses. 3 frames. Well, 36 torsos, 18 riders' legs. So I've actually popped on the Perry's website and ordered some more Perry horses, so I can at least get 18 knights now out of each of my boxes of Agincourt. But of course, then there are loads of torsos left over, and these spare torsos you can actually use if you combine them with some Napoleonic soldiers, Perry Napoleonics, Warlord Games, whatever. You can actually use those to make some Turnip 28 models, and I will be looking at those at some point in the future, within the next couple of weeks. But that was it really. That was my quick video, which has ended up being nearly half an hour, on Perry horses, what boxes you get them in, what you can do with them, and then of course the wonderful offerings from Wargames Atlantic that further increase your ability to convert and chop and change, and then some size comparisons. Thanks very much for watching. As I get more into this, I will be getting my head around some video editing software. I will be able to show you better things. I'm still in the process of sorting out my man cave upstairs. And I'll be able then to do some modeling, painting and converting sort of tutorials, which I hope will perhaps complement and expand on the kind of things that I did in my 2 books on modeling and converting science fiction miniatures and fantasy figures. But thank you again for bearing with me, and as I said, I will try and get a link in the description below to Miniature Realms, but at some point in the next week or 2, my interview with Stuart should be going live on his channel. So hopefully you will pop across there and get to know me a little better. Take care. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to chatting to you again in the next video.